What are your thoughts on that? Because the more I sat there and thought about the conversations we were having inside Chase Center yesterday, it was very, very clearly laid out after the new CBA provision. And let's be honest, we're all running around in life as huge NBA fans, and not a damn one of us knows anything about the CBA. We couldn't tell you about it. We couldn't explain it. We couldn't work it. We've never done a salary cap, blah, blah, blah. So I try to listen when people who do know this stuff have things to say. And one of them was this, and you can be mad at Joe Lacob for this, but I bet all of the NBA teams and owners would say the same thing. We're not doing 4 players over $30 million per year after this year because you just can't. It is a bad bet. It is preventative. It's all these negative things. And so it clicked. It clicked in a way that it hadn't to that point, which is, I didn't really want Chris Paul either. But the most important thing about Chris might be that, A, the Warriors do think he can help a little bit by not turning the ball over. But B, he's got 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah.
So does Klay Thompson. And so if Draymond Green is making $30 million a year, which is somewhat anticipated, and Steph Curry's going to be making twice that, that means you can't have 2 more players making 30 or more after this year. And if Jordan Poole is one of them, buy Klay. Like, no offer.
Unless he wants to play for like
17 a year.
Exactly. Because Wiggins will be making 26.3.
Which means you already got someone who's damn close.
Steph will be at 55.7, and that's not this upcoming year, but the year after. The year after, 55.7. Wiggins is at 26.3. Draymond will probably be at 30. So there's 3 right there. Chris Paul will be gone. Klay would be the 4th one. So to your point, do you want Jordan still here, who would have made, or he will make, for Washington?
Right.
30.9. So there's your 4th.
There's your 4th.
You're not doing 5. You can't do 5 when that new league year kicks off.
And I don't even know if you could offer him 20 with all those contracts on the books.
Right.
So I do really genuinely wonder, Warriors fans, how would you have felt if it had been presented to you that way? Your response would have been what? And you can call in right now, 888-957-9570. If the Warriors had simply stated it that way, hey, Warrior fans, after this year, you want Jordan or do you want Klay? Because you only get one. I say Klay.
888-957-9570.
I vote Klay.
I also vote Klay, but I do know that there are a number of Warrior fans who would vote Jordan.
No
These
doubt.
are the same people who had advocated, and I know people on our station were saying the same thing. Klay needs to come off the bench. You need to let Jordan cook. You need to let Jordan start and have Klay come off the bench. Because Klay, as you remember, Mark, in October and November and a good part of December, he was awful. He was not a very productive player. He was hunting shots. He was shooting too much. He was taking bad shots. Jordan Poole ended up being that player later in the year, but the team struggled not only because their young guys weren't getting it done, but Klay was bad early in the season.
There's no question. However, I'll state what I've stated many times, which I still think that we look at his last year through the lens of how we saw him last. He had a better year than you think. Yes, I'm with you. He was terrible against the Lakers. Of course he was. But that doesn't mean he had a terrible year. And for me, if we take the year as a whole, the year that Klay had versus the year that Jordan had, factor in their career-long resume. I know age. I get it. I
don't think you even have to factor in the career resume to make your point.
Yeah, for me, it is clearly Klay Thompson, especially when then you think about where they would be, in theory, in 3 years when Steph Curry's career may be over or his current contract comes off the books. The Warriors will have full flexibility to go into a market with absolute biceps drawn and do whatever they want to do. Not the case if Jordan Poole's contract is still on the books. So that's now the lens I use, and it helps me understand and maybe, again, wrap my head around.
Oh, you're getting there.
Chris Paul.
Don't roll your eyes.
Being on the damn team.
He's a Warriors.
I know.
CP3 and Jordan Poole's going to leave his jersey in his locker, and they're just going to take out a couple of vowels and reconfigure 2 O's into an A and slap in a U and then take out the E, and you got yourself from JP3 to CP3 just like that. Klay Thompson last year, Mark, you have to remember how bad it was for so long. And then, because to me, Klay Thompson had like 4 different years. His October and November and December were not good. Nope. December, he turned the corner. January and February, he was unbelievable. March and April, he came back to earth a little bit, but he still shot it at a higher rate. Yeah. He shot it at 35% in October, 42 in November, 40 in December, and he wound up with a better year, and he had the most threes in the league and all the rest of it.
Yeah, totally. So, again, from beginning to end, was it rocky? Sure. We all understand the Klay story. I still think that he was a good basketball player. I still think he's got a lot in the tank, and I still think he knows how to play Warrior basketball. Those are not all things that I can necessarily give a green check to with regard to Jordan Poole. Let's go to the phones here on Willard and Dibs. Glad you're with us. Dylan in Modesto. You're on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Dylan, what are you doing?
I'm on the Bay Bridge. You guys can hear me?
Got you loud and clear, Dylan.
It's nice to talk to you. But, to be honest, I listen to you guys every day. I text you guys all the time. I know you guys got a lot of calls, but my opinion is there's almost like 3 timelines with the Warriors. You have before KD, and after KD.
Okay.
The team won that first championship because they were a good squad, togetherness. You had a lot of people buy in, and some veterans came into that squad. That's a good team that won that first championship. Then you go play with Kevin Durant. You basically get a steroid and kind of ride Kevin Durant's back. Everything at the job's easy, like Willard and Dibs. You make Dibs' job a little bit easier with your host. So then all of a sudden, too, you have Draymond Green and a lot of personalities. Nobody's going to really come and tell KD that he's a bad basketball player or get on him, because when Draymond tried to get on him, that's when he left. So then all of a sudden, you have Curry basically still as the leader, but he lets Draymond take the role. But like I said, when you had Kevin Durant, I feel like he kind of took his side of the room, and Draymond took his side of the room. Now all of a sudden, you have Jordan's whole side of the room. And then now you have Klay coming back off an injury. A lot of people say Klay Thompson's lost a step. I don't really believe he's lost a step. I believe he's lost a step because he's not playing with Kevin Durant no more.
That's interesting, Dylan. I you know what? I don't know if I buy that. I sort of piece portions of Klay's game apart when we have that question. When people say, to what level is Klay Thompson declining beyond the obvious? Like when people move into their mid-30s, it's just they're not as athletic. I get it. I see it a little bit more on the defensive end. He's inconsistent offensively last year, but he'd been through that before. That's the way shooters go. I remember terrible stretches for Klay Thompson shooting the ball, even in quote-unquote his prime prior to the injuries. I think offensive Klay last year, pretty similar to what we'd seen in the past. Defensive Klay is where I start to see a little bit of a fall off. I just don't think that that's as big of a deal as we make it out to be when you've got other good defensive players on the team like Wiggins and Draymond.
Yeah, I do think it's a bigger deal because he used to be a great on-ball defender, and now he's not as good as an on-ball defender, so that falls to whom? And you're
Wiggins.
adding... Right, but when you're guarding a quicker guard. Wiggins is better against wings. Klay used to be able to guard ones and twos on the ball, and now you have to leave that to Steph Curry or GP2 when he's on the floor. Yep. Jordan Poole couldn't do it. Chris Paul can't do it, even though I'm in favor of the trade. So that's an area where Klay Thompson took a step back. Offensively, he's not the same player because he's not as dynamic in terms of all the different things he used to be able to do. Klay Thompson doesn't post up as much as he used to. Klay Thompson doesn't look to drive into the mid-range and pull up like he used to. He's becoming, and I'm not saying he's there yet, but he's trending toward being a spot-up three-point shooter.
It's just funny to me when people are so fixated on how many points Jordan Poole scores because he was actually 50th in the NBA in the regular season in scoring. 50th at just over 20 points a game.
I have higher than that. I think it's 44th. Nope. I don't think 50 guys scored 20 a game.
I got the list right here.
What are you looking at? NBA?
I'm looking at ESPN.
Basketball Reference?
ESPN.
Okay.
2022, 2023, complete leaders in terms of scoring, and Jordan Poole is 50th at 20.4. And we get so fit. Oh, my gosh, what if he averages 22 next year for the Wizards? Well, he will. He will, and who cares? Because it's empty calories, and there are a bunch of guys who scored 20 points a game, and I bet you, not you, Dibs, but you listeners, couldn't even tell me what team they played for. Let me give you a couple names who scored more than Jordan Poole per game last year. Terry Rozier scored more than Jordan Poole per game last year. Darius Garland, Keldon Johnson, Jalen Green scored more. Jeremy Grant scored more. Jordan Clarkson scored more. You putting your future into any of those guys? They're good players. Jordan Poole's a good player. Is he a 1? When you go north of 25, now we're having a little bit more of a conversation.